Okay, I don't have a hook today because I don't have time. What I do have is a story about a group of really real women that I recently got to meet with. I facilitated a really intimate session in a gorgeous space, somebody's home, where she invited seven of her closest friends to come together and process through the things that have been unsaid, unspoken. Each of these women were also mothers. Each of these women were also women of color. And each of these women was holding a lot. What I felt most impacted by was how messy each of these women reported feeling about themselves, about their lives, about their experience of motherhood, about their relationship to their spouses, and where they feel like they're coming up short in each and every area professionally, personally, physically, mentally, emotionally, just falling short everywhere. And I think this is the nature of high achievement where we feel we're coming up short because the bar is way, way, way too high. And that way, 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 way too high bar serves us in many ways throughout our life because we exceed other people's expectations. We impress people with the things that we do, with the extents that we'll go to make a thing happen, the details that we will run down, the extra effort, right? That 110, 120, 150% that other people get to benefit from and other people get inspired by and other people are, impressed by and want to hire you for or want to emulate you and congratulate you for. And so it's tricky when that same strength becomes your greatest weakness. Having an extremely high bar in life when you don't wield it with intention, with thoughtfulness, is a lot of suffering. The woman that I was speaking with in this room, that was nothing that ever came out of anyone's mouth because part of also being an extremely high achiever is saying it's fine, it's okay, it's not that bad because I can see how bad other people have it, whether it's in my family or my broader community or just in the world at large, that you recognize that you have a lot to be grateful for. But it is suffering when we allow ourselves to begin to crack open what's actually beneath the surface, the insecurities about the ways in which we are just not perfect, that we are falling so, so short of being the perfect wives, mothers, professionals. I think we're sitting in a lot of vacuums, lacking a lot of feedback. In that space, alone with our own thoughts, we're just constantly condemning ourselves. And so when you have the space, like I had in this living room with the women that I spoke with a few days ago, you finally have the space where someone is holding it and then saying, you can trust me here. You can trust this space. You can finally let it out. Like you can finally be real. You can be totally honest. You can be raw. You don't have to have it together for your kids. You don't have to have it together in front of your other family members or your boss or your clients or you know what I mean? You don't have to have it together for your team. You don't have to be the leader right now. That part of the leadership that you get to activate right now is a different dimension of self leadership, which means I get to lead myself through the full spectrum of my honest and true emotions, that I get to be real about the storms that are raging inside of me, that I get to be real about the fears that have me crying when everybody's gone to sleep. And one of the most beautiful opportunities in a space like that is that if you allow it, if you submit to yourself, that you get to find that the mess is not actually too much for anybody. That the mess, one woman's mess, her sitting in, I don't know what I want. I don't know who I am. I'm falling short in all of these different ways. I feel like I've lost myself or I've lost the plot. That shows up in tears in the woman who gets to hear you and says in her own mind, oh my gosh, that's me too. There's a piece of me in there as well. And that everybody's humanity allowing themselves to wake up to each other in that way is so, 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 so powerful and so, so, so necessary. I recounted to these women my past therapy experience. My first therapist was incredible. She was actually a music psychotherapist. And so she leveraged like things like instruments. She had this office that was filled with instruments from around the world. She was super eclectic. She always had on like these very drapey, lovely fabrics in her clothing and beads and cool hair colors and just a room full of music. So we would play little instruments. This is how I connected with my little inner self. And I would sing songs to her. I would sing songs with her. I would bawl out of control. And I know in those first few months of meeting with my therapist, it was my very first time ever in a therapy environment like that. I was still very much trapped in my inner good girl, in my perfectionist. And her being patient and taking her time to allow me to allow myself to unravel. And I remember in one of those sessions when I finally cracked. If you ever work with a therapist and if you ever find that resistance moment coming up where you get to that point where it's like, we're about to get really real. Like we're about to approach something that feels like a black box and I'm not trying to step through that hole. I'm not trying to step into that void. It feels very, very scary. I'm going to have to relinquish control and I don't know what's going to happen. What she was saying to me, I went ahead and stepped across that threshold and had my moment of just absolute release and crying uncontrollably for a minute or two. She said that many people won't take that step, won't move past that threshold, that marker of control, that line of demarcation, because they believe if they start crying, if they start raging, if they let the sadness out, the confusion out, that they'll never stop. That it feels so vast and so deep that no one can contain it. No one would be able to hold the space for it. And it feels unending. And what we find when we have spaces like the retreat spaces I like to create, like the living room space I'm telling you about today that I got to create with these women, these intimate, intentionally designed spaces that are held and facilitated. Because it is hard, I think, to just do this with a group of friends. I think the facilitation piece actually is quite meaningful. And I know that I am not only trained to do this, I am built to do this. And that it is one of the greatest gifts I feel like I can offer the women that I work with is that kind of space. I've had it held for me by other powerful women, particularly. So I know what that's like on the receiving end, but that it's never as scary as you think it's going to be. It's never as scary as you think it's going to be. And when you allow yourself to let some of that steam out of the pot, you allow yourself to be out loud in your mess, like you just kind of relinquish control. Again, in safe held space, that you get to meet the side of yourself that you've been dying to meet. The side of yourself that you have put yourself through endless internal suffering because you feel like you're not being her. You're not close enough to her. That you actually get to glimpse her when you go through the storm, when you walk across that threshold. Just having this experience the other day was just such a powerful reminder to me of how incredibly critical it is for us to have spaces where we can truly unravel and be in the fullness of our mess, that our mess has the most to offer us, that our mess has the peace that we're craving, that our mess has the creativity that we can't access, that our mess is where our compass lies. In seasons of life where we feel so lost, part of it is because we just keep turning our back to the messiness. We keep trying to tamp down what's messy instead of going towards it, instead of walking through it. And finding spaces like that, insisting on it, whether it is like it was for me in the past with a therapist, or actually also for me in the past, I've had a couple of incredible coaches who made it very clear with their skill and their intent and what they just naturally exuded through their training that they got it, they can handle it. And at the end of this session that I spent with these women, and it was spent about 4.5 hours together. By the end of the experience, everybody has been crying and laughing and sharing and arriving at these brilliant conclusions for themselves, these next steps that they did not feel were possible or that they have been trying to skip past because they felt too scary or they didn't feel like enough or whatever the things are, the stories that we place on what we know it is that we need to do. We concluded and everyone was so, so grateful for the space that we had created, so, so, so grateful to me and giving me a lot of wonderful feedback on the leadership that I held. And I got the question, how do you do this and walk away not holding everything that everyone has placed out here? That it's, how do you recover? So I can't lie and say that these spaces have no impact on me. Like there's a lot of energy, our emotions are energy. There's a lot of energy being moved that's sort of ushered through that space. And I'm in it. I'm in the midst of the storm with everybody else. And so it's not like I don't feel that. I do. And I'm typically tired. I'm typically tired a couple hours later. I kind of ride a high and then I get tired and then I come back because I'm also inspired. But I told her that I've also learned about just how creative and capable people are when you allow them to be, when you treat them as such, when you don't treat their emotions as fragility. Just because somebody is feeling fragile in a moment, somebody is breaking and cracking in a moment, doesn't mean that that is who they are. That fragility is something that we experience sometimes, that we move through, that we learn from, that we need to just be with. And then you find your way. We are all whole. I don't see myself as somebody that steps in and needs to fix anything or fix anyone. I'm not fixing broken people. I'm supporting space for all of us to explore the parts that feel breaking or cracking, the parts that need to break and crack, where we need to open. And yeah, I can walk away from that feeling fine because I know it's not my responsibility. And I hope that that's even a little bit of inspiration for those of you who are highly empathetic and tend to take on people's emotions and tend to feel like some other person's burdens or suffering needs to become yours. And that if you are not the vessel for their suffering and their challenges, that they can't handle it alone, that they can't figure things out on their own. And I shouldn't even say alone, but that they can't figure it out without you taking everything on yourself, like pulling all of that into your nervous system and being a nervous wreck yourself. That's not required, and it's not actually helpful to them. Anyway, showing up with a unshakable belief that people are creative and whole, and that you don't need to fix anyone, that really need to worry about yourself. And that you can be in the space with each other. So I like the language that we hold space. It's about, I can just be next to you. I can be with you. I can look at you. I can look at the thing with you. I'm standing next to you in it. And that it's okay that that's yours. And it's okay that what's mine is mine, and maintaining that separation. So anyway, I guess I just took a lot of learnings, a lot of important reminders from this session. And I'm grateful. I'm so grateful that I get to do the work that I get to do, and that I get to hold the spaces that I get to hold, and that I then get to share them. I get to share what I learn and what I'm experiencing on platforms like this with those of you who may be avoiding your own messy moments, who have been wanting to approach and cross that line where you have to relinquish control out of fear for what you'll find on the other side. And I can tell you, for every woman in that room who braved crossing that line, and everybody did in their own way, that they felt nothing but relief. Obviously, we don't solve all the world's problems in a single afternoon together, but when you do something like that, especially with other women who are aligned and who are serious about operating as a community and creating psychologically safe space with one another, building together, rooting for each other, that you're going to walk away feeling relieved. And that even just having that glimpse of yourself, that little tiny bit of relief or sort of reframing that you get access to when you get to move through those emotions instead of stuffing them down. And what that even does, child, don't even get me started about the little bits of things I'm learning about how our emotions are held in our different organs from traditional Chinese medicine. It's eating us up, like not just psychologically, but physically, holding these things inside, but being able to release that even in a single afternoon, it could change your entire trajectory, right? And it also builds a confidence that you can keep doing it, because it's never a one and done thing. It's not like, oh, I had my big cry session and now I'm good for life. No, baby. It's a practice. It is a practice. It is a skill. It is a strength. It is a capacity to build within yourself. And it is a strength. It takes a lot of strength and willingness and just faith that you can allow yourself to be seen by yourself and by others, to be witnessed as well at your most honest, at your most real and raw. So I guess this is my little encouragement to anyone out there who's listening, to find your safe space, to move towards that line. If you need to close your eyes and hold your breath, do what you got to do, but step across that threshold and know that what you are looking for, what you're searching for, is likely through that storm. All right, y'all. I'll talk to you next time.